Hello everybody, this is Dad, and we're going to continue playing War Stories from World of Tanks.
The German preemptive strike had been fierce, the Soviet losses heavy. Regardless, the orders still stood. The Russian offensive would continue as planned. Colonel Peters suddenly found himself caught up with the push towards the enemy front line. The Russian Shermans had managed to stem the German onslaught, but they lacked the necessary reinforcements to press home their advantage. One thing was clear to Peters: they needed more tanks. It was now a race against time for the Russians. They could make for the disabled tank and turn it against their enemy, or engage the German patrol directly with the remaining Shermans. Peters prayed they would make the right call. Peters rallied his crew. It was their turn to strike back at the Germans.
Here we go. Now, the thing I do like about this is that they have the Sherman against the right tanks. Because when it first came out, it was really good. It was a good tank, but the problem with the Sherman was it was quickly outclassed in real life.
He'd capture some abandoned tanks and turn them against the enemy.
So this at least gets to show the Sherman at its best. Because when you play the regular war of tanks, Sherman gets in trouble real quick. So, oh nuts. So against like these Panzer IIIs, Sherman's a pretty decent tank. Even against the Panzer IVs. But once it starts getting into the Panthers and the Tigers, no way. And of course, the bad thing, the Americans had the M6 before they had the Sherman. And they decided against it because who was going to build a heavy tank?
We pierced their armor. We hit them hard. They're knocked out.
Of course, Sherman was better than that Lee or Grant. Those tanks, that tank was terrible. So, but you have to watch out though. Because you can play this and kind of get the wrong idea about tank. Ooh, never mind. Because you can play this in the Tiger. Just isn't that good, but in real life, you didn't want to be facing the Tiger and the Sherman.
They found us. Enemy exposed. Ready to fire. Looks like that one went right through. We're immobilized. We pierced their armor. Tracks up. Let's go. Penetration. Good night, Irene. They spotted us.
See, and this is pretty good.
Looks like that one went right through. Loaded and ready.
But the problem you have is when you're playing competitively, everybody wants the best tank they can get. And so if you're playing as Sherman, you're in deep trouble.
The battlefield was littered with the smoking remains of German armor. Peters was thankful they had survived, just. But this day was far from over.
Mission accomplished.
Let's see what we got for an upgrade. Crew, never mind. Supplies. So push for victory. So here we go.
In one bloody morning, the advantage had swung from the Germans back to the Soviets. The preemptive strike had been curtailed. Peters, bolstered with captured enemy tanks, rejoined the main Russian force for the final assault. As they bore down on the German position, Peters was comforted by the thought that, if he fell, he would die surrounded by men he'd be proud to call brothers. If Peters could smash the enemy front line, Germany would be pushed out of Romania. Peters knew that somewhere out there, enemy tank destroyers were waiting to ambush the Russian advance.
One of our vehicles destroyed. Look out, enemy spotted. Been detected.
Okay.
One of our vehicles destroyed. They're knocked out. He's gone. Find us another target. We lost an ally. They found us. Looks like that one went right through. That Irene. We're capturing the enemy base.
Ah, there we go. Get some repair on this bad boy.
Been detected. They spotted us. I see one. Loaded and ready. Friendly vehicle destroyed. That's gotta hurt. Punched a hole in their armor. They destroyed one of our tanks. Ready to fire. Penetration.
Damn.
Enemies got us in their sights. We lost a friendly vehicle.
Get in there.
We lost an ally. They've destroyed one of our tanks.
shit.
Ready to move.
Victory was theirs to savor. Peters smiled and congratulated his Sherman crew.
Best job I ever had.
The battle had been intense and lasted several hours. The Germans had fought with dogged tenacity, determined to halt the Soviet advance. But the might of the Russian armor proved too strong. The German defenses had crumbled as the Shermans punched a hole right through them. Now, nothing could stop Russia from knocking the Romanians out of the Axis. This day, this victory, belonged to Peters and his crew. With the news of his departure still ringing in his ears, Peters found himself surrounded by his fellow crew members. Their shared ordeal had bonded them together. Now, these fresh orders were wrenching them apart. Peters may have missed out fighting alongside his men in Normandy, but here, on the Eastern Front, he had found new brothers in armor he could stand shoulder to shoulder with.
So, I think I'll leave it right there for now. Thanks for watching. That's a pretty neat little thing there. So, you get to actually see how the Sherman work at its best, instead of always being a target in the regular game. So, until next time,